Now, once again this week, the discussion around the age of South Africa's government ministers is firmly in the spotlight. That's after an infographic that was published by a local data journalism group looking at just how old our ministers are. So, after years of promises of uplifting the youth, 2/3 of President Cyril Ramaphosa's cabinet are over the age of 60. Newzroom Afrika's Andersen asked the question, why?
The average age of the South African population is 27 years old. The average age of President Cyril Ramaphosa's current cabinet, however, is 60 years old. The discussion over the aged government has been kicking off again on social media, thanks to this graphic by data journalism group, The Outlier. It certainly got South Africans talking. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma and Pravin Gordhan are the oldest in the cabinet, at 74 and 73 respectively, while the majority sit between the age of 60-something and 70. The youngest cabinet minister is Justice Minister Ronald Lamola at 39. So the question is, why is our cabinet so old? According to political analyst Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast, there is plenty of hypocrisy involved from senior leaders not wanting to give up power and benefits.
When young people are making demands that they have to walk out of government, now people are talking about, ageism, that this thing of ageism is putting the country at risk of losing people who are experienced, which is not the case. I mean, why would you make a policy for government officials to walk out of government at 65, but you don't want that principle to be applied to you? It's, applying double standards.
The questions around senior citizen cabinet members is not exclusive to South Africa. And while the African continent has a particularly young population, the average age of a president in Africa was 60 years old in 2021. And as for Ramaphosa's promises around youth, the average age of his party's National Executive Committee has gone down since the new NEC was elected back in December. Despite this, the cabinet and government has gotten older. While Breakfast argues that Ramaphosa is rewarding those loyal to him in government, he also believes that factionalism among youth ANC members is also rearing its head.
The problem at the moment is that when you look at the ANC as it stands, I mean, the majority of young people who joined the ANC in the early 90s, they have been baptized in factionalism without making time to learn about the ins and outs or the do's and don'ts of the ANC, in particular with regard to political education. So most of them, they tend to be captured, they tend to be bought, they tend to be subsumed into factions, and they are not independent in terms of speaking their minds.
With the president himself now 70 years old, and his newly appointed deputy, Paul Mashatile, 61, it's important to remember that just 9% of the SA population are older than 60. But with the national election now just over a year away, can South Africans expect a move towards youth representation in government? For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Andersen in Johannesburg.